Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. Hopefully, you guys have also had a good holiday and are in having safe travels right now if you haven't already got back into your destinations. So, tonight, relatively calm night. There was a marginal risk, a little bit of activity towards the northeast, a handful of wind reports and hail reports, a couple of which even significant. Hail greater than 2 inches by in diameter, by the way. But that's not what this video is about. This video is obviously about this enhanced risk here for Tuesday. So we'll go ahead and dive into that real quick. So before I get into the meat of that, I want to mention in yesterday's video, I kind of started to backtrack on this. I was thinking that the severe threat isn't quite as robust as I was thinking it would be. But we also know how these models can sometimes flip flop and so on and so forth. That's exactly what's happened here. So I'm doing pretty much a complete 180 on that. So you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, because literally all the parameters are here, and also when we look at the synopsis here, after I go over the areas here, they mention in particular the words tornado outbreak. So I guess in a way I'm kind of ringing the alarm. I don't want to just yet, but I'm starting to think that this is looking a little bit dangerous. But let's go over the areas that are in each outlook legend, each part of the categorical outlook here. We'll start out with the enhanced risk. We're looking at Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee. We have Pine Bluff, Arkansas in play. Little Rock, you're actually now out of this enhanced risk. You were in it yesterday. And then, of course, we can look at areas like Bartlett, Tennessee as well, being at increased risk for severe weather. Then we can also look to areas like Greenville, Mississippi. Jackson, you're now out of the enhanced risk, I think. You might have been in there yesterday. I knew it was close. But also can look at Monroe, Louisiana being involved here. That's pretty much it for our enhanced risk. But our slight risk now, it's extended a little further west if you ask me. But Lufkin looks like it's involved here. Lufkin, Texas, that is. We have Alexandria, Baton Rouge. We got to look out for you guys. We got, of course, Jackson, Tennessee. We have Jackson, Mississippi as well. And then this even extends a little bit further north now. We're even looking towards areas like southern Illinois and southeastern Missouri, which could be involved in this as well. Then, of course, our marginal threat, which is a little bit smaller of a threat, but not a 0% threat. We can include areas like New Orleans, Nashville, St. Louis, Pasadena, and even Houston here. So let's go ahead and quickly look at the synopsis here. So we look here at this particular paragraph. We mentioned the shear, we mentioned the cape, which represents an unstable atmosphere. And then we have storm relative felicities that are about 400 to 500 meters square. That usually represents how much spin is in the atmosphere, especially at the low levels. And this is favorable for supercells and tornadoes. A few strong ones will be possible with the cells that remain discrete. And this is why I pushed hard to make that third video on that Weather Nerd 101 playlist, because this is what's going to help you pick out which storms are the most dangerous. And it's those discrete cells that you need to be watching come Tuesday if you happen to be in this area of concern. But here is the wording that has my attention the most right here. A tornado outbreak will be possible across parts of the lower to mid Mississippi Valley if current forecast parameters prevail. So let's go ahead and actually look at those parameters now, shall we? Alright, so here's what we have going on right now. The new storm system moves in Monday, and I've moved this forward to about Tuesday afternoon. So here's what I want you to note here, and this is what's interesting. So our main area of upper level forcing is right here, right? It's so this is what we have going on here. This is where our severe threat is. It's going to be right here. Or I'm going to try to box this area here. I'm not trying. I was afraid I was going to do that. But what's really interesting about this area, if I go through this, these model comparisons here, Euro doesn't really pick up on it quite as strongly, but you can almost see a secondary wind maximum right here that's broken off from this main part of the trough here. This is what you call a jet streak. Jet streaks like this, when they break off from the main part of the trough over an area like this, that could sometimes be a telltale sign of severe weather. So we look at the Canadian model here. It shows a little bit stronger of a jet popping up here. We're looking at the upper levels of the atmosphere, and we have an 80 knot jet streak right over this area that's heading in by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. GFS shows it as well. The HRRR shows it. The traditional NAM shows it. Of course, the NAM 3 kilometers showing it. Just about everything except for the Euro has showed an increased jet streak over here. And this is part of what has me concerned. There's more to it, but this is towards the upper levels of the atmosphere. One of the other things to look at is the lower levels of the atmosphere. Our low level jet, which is our 850 millibar here. And this is where my concern really starts to go up here. So this is us looking at the NAM here. Usually a 40 to 50 knot lower jet is what's sufficient for severe weather here. And we definitely have gotten that and then some. Some areas we're getting into that 55 knot. And some areas could be isolated, in isolated spots here could be up to 60 knots or more. When we start to get into the yellow part, this yellow area here, we're getting into 60 knots plus, some places even 65. Now over here, we're not so concerned about the severe weather threat. Instability won't be getting this far. Well, actually, maybe it might a little bit, but not by much, but not that much. The main area of concern is right around here. So we'll go ahead and move this along, actually. We'll move this to, I'd probably say about maybe 8 o'clock. We'll move it 6 hours ahead. And this low-level jet really starts to pick up later at night. If this will load. I'll just give this a second here. Here we go. And you can see a lot more areas of 60 knots or more. And this will pick up even more as we get into, I remember seeing in that Synopsis 03Z. So this is getting into the late night hours. So the wind threat really starts to pick up here. There's a lot of low level energy here. We'll start to lose instability though, so this could limit the tornado threat at night, but this would also be very concerning to me. But look at this. We're getting into 60, 65 knot territory here. Big line of storms possible in this part here, right into the overnight. And there could be some embedded supercells in that as a result. And of course, when we look at all the other models here, it's a very similar look. Of course, looking at the 3 kilometer here, which is a designated short range model, it's going to be a little bit more high def. But there is a lot of model agreement with this, and that's one thing that I find pretty concerning here. Now let's look at the moisture, and this is where my confidence really started to go up here. I was never really concerned about the jet streaks there. Those have been picked up for a while. The moisture return is what gets me. So we're backtracking actually all the way to Monday, and here's why it's of significance. So right around here is where all this really warm, juicy air is going to be. We're sitting in the 60 degree, 70 degree territory just offshore with our dew points here. That's more than sufficient enough for severe weather. Why I was mentioning that that low pressure system here, because it's not going to take much forcing to pull this moisture here that we would need for our severe weather event all the way up north to our warm sector. This definitely ends up happening as this storm system would move north here. Oops, I clicked the button at the wrong time. So now I'm gonna have to readjust this, but we'll go ahead and go to 42 hours out, and you can actually start to see that occurring. You can see actually also by these wind barbs here, and these are at about the surface level. You can see that those higher dew points, that really rich moisture starting to get pulled into our warm sector here. And this is where concern really started to increase for me here. And if we look on all the models, this warm sector is almost consistent with every single run here. Here's the Euro, Canadian, GFS, HRRR, just basically every model on the screen here I looked through, and we start to see the moisture starting to work its way in. And this is at 8 o'clock, around about 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So this moisture still will be working its way north when these storms would be expected to fire. And one other thing I want to note here, as we go back to the wind here, if we were to go back to the 500 millibar map, it's one thing I talk about is more zonal flow. Not so, and when I talk about zonal, that's referring to the jet stream being a little bit more smooth, a little less amplitude. Like for example, this right here. Here's our low right here. When it's really scrunched up together, like what you would see it do later in this model run here. We'll actually go back to the end of this model run. But when it gets a little bit more scrunched up like that, just a little bit more like that, that's gonna actually cause these storms to move faster. The forcing will be a little bit more abrupt, and that's not what you would look for when you're looking for discrete cells and tornadic activity. But in this situation, we don't really have that. This flow, right, this zonal flow here will create more subtle forcing, but it'll be sufficient enough to get that moisture in, and then also will allow these storms to become more discrete. And it's like I said before, the discrete storms are the ones that we need to be looking out for on Tuesday. So let's go ahead and move this up to about 48 hours out. And lo and behold, look what we have here. Dew points getting into the 70s, some places even beyond 70 here. And here we go. This is getting into 1 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe even noon Eastern time for some of the noon Central time for some of these areas to be exact. And we have very, very rich dew points. We have some dew points starting to get into the mid 70s, more than sufficient enough for severe weather. Move this along to 54 hours, and this warm sector works its way out to the east, but that warm sector is in such great abundance. This is an environment that is almost tailor-made, I would say, for discrete supercells. This video may run long because I'm kind of geeking out over this a little bit, but this is also a very real threat too. So I want to try to hammer this in as best as I can. But even when we go towards the end of this model run, 60 hours out from when this was made, look how large this warm sector is, and look how far north it starts to get too. So we can look at eastern Arkansas as well, having the potential for maybe even a few tornadoes. But I think this main area right around here is going to be where I'm most interested. There could even be a upgrade to a moderate risk by possibly even as early as tomorrow afternoon. But we'll see what goes on with that. But again, model agreement is full circle here. So it looks like we very well could have a tornado outbreak on our hands here. If this forecast holds, I see no way that it doesn't happen. So also one thing to note here is to look at the temperature. Be a little quicker with this, but usually you want to be into the low to upper 70s for severe weather potential. Usually when you have dew points like that, it's almost inevitable that you'll end up with sufficient temperature. It's very rare that you don't. So we look at this here, over towards eastern Texas where we're concerned about severe weather. Getting into the 70s, some spots over here even could get up to 80. And then of course this is going to move a little bit to the east here. In our warm sector, we're already in the 70s by noon. Very warm for this time of year. And pretty much again, complete model agreement here. We even have the National Weather Service blend of models here being thrown into the mix, and it's very consistent. We'll move this to 54 hours out, and it's going to pretty much be the same deal. In fact, if anything, it's a little bit warmer over towards the coast, towards Louisiana and Mississippi. And this is even getting towards the time where the sun started to set. These temperatures are holding here, so this also has the look of a nocturnal threat, which is very concerning. So this is going to be potentially an all-day event. So anyone in these areas, definitely be watching the weather from pretty much Monday night all the way through Tuesday. Have a way to get the warnings to you, because just because the sun sets doesn't mean your threat's going to be over. We'll have to see how things progress with that in order to really know for sure. But I think this has the makings of an all-day event, potentially a 12-hour event. Even when we get into the overnight hours here, until this front passes, which will be right here, this warm sector doesn't look like it's going anywhere. So let's go ahead and take a final look at what the radar could look like from here. I've also taken the liberty of zooming in here, simply because we know where the storms are going to be. There's no question about that. And we pretty much know the timing, so all we need to do is just take a look here. Also take a quick look at the sounding as well as we go onward. So we've rolled through Monday here, and I think it will be right about 10 o'clock when these first storms start to fire here. And there will be a tornado threat even with these storms. That just shows how loaded the environment actually is. So when we look at the sounding, for example, if it'll load, frozen here. Oh wait, no, we haven't. We'll close out some of these tabs, try to keep things flowing here. We already have our marginal tornado threat at about 9-10 a.m., which is crazy. You see more of this kind of stuff during the spring, so it's pretty crazy to think that we're already there at this time. But right at about 10 o'clock, you can almost kind of even see it, like there's little kinks in these line segments here where we have these discrete supercells, and boom, there you go. There's your probable hazard type tornado. Look at the helicity. Look at these storm relative helicity on this here. You always look for these little curvatures in the hordeograph. There you go. There it is in abundance. It's a pretty significant tornado threat too. The significant tornado parameter here is at like a 4.5. Plenty of instability with this system here. And then just looking at the dew points raising into the higher levels here, when we see these little spreads, that's always a telltale sign. So this is a very stacked atmosphere, very dangerous. And then of course, as we move this to the east, there's still opportunity for some of these cells to end up forming and be discrete ahead of the main line. And it's really not until late in the evening where we start to see that cold front come through. So this could very well be an overnight event too. I do see a few more discrete cells here even. So this could be multiple rounds here. Look at that, and there it is. Lo and behold, look at that. This could be a rough day. This could be a very rough day. This could be a very nasty tornado event. I'm honestly hoping that this doesn't happen, but like I said, if you are in these areas, you need to make sure that you have a way to get these warnings out or keep track of this event in the early going. Because just because you go through one round, it doesn't mean that it's over. So definitely, before I end this video here, if you know anyone that's in Louisiana, you know anyone that's in eastern Arkansas, towards western Tennessee, Mississippi, share this video, get it out to them, let them know that something big might be on the way here. Let's hope that it isn't that way, but let's keep the people around us informed. But that's pretty much all I got for this video. If you guys like what I did here, of course, definitely drop me a like. Of course, again, please share this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, definitely do so. But this is it for me right now. I will have a video probably up tomorrow night. I might make a post on things tomorrow, especially if they upgrade things to moderate risk. But until then, this has been Metalhead Weatherman. I will see you guys in the next one. Have a good night. Stay safe.